Hi, I'm Shane. I'm here with Adam and
Michael Hotaling.
Fantastic. And we're at the Digital Twin Event conference today, and we're talking about how digitalization is supporting operations, how operators are leveraging, what they're actually using this to change ways of working, to improve quality of decisions. And we're just so curious. The last 5 years, massive changes in the industry. Massive changes in the industry. We've been disrupted with generative AI just since 2022. Mm-hmm. But in your perspective, Michael, what have been the key, I would say, aha moments for you in the past 5 years?
Oh, the key ahums. I thought you like ho-hums or the ahums, right?
We'll take whatever.
Yeah.
Aren't they the same?
No, it's a good question. The interesting part, if I think about the journey that we have been on, and it's funny, is I share with my team that, I'm going to start publishing the top 5 anti-business transformational trends, right? Just to make sure we can level set, right? So like the first one is, if anywhere in your digital thread you have the word PDF.
Oh, I love PDFs.
Or if I get back to, it's like, no. Let's embed a URL code.
Oh yeah.
Right?
iframe it.
Yeah, exactly. Or even better, let's do OCR scanning. Right? I mean, in the reality is that when you look at this from where we've been, this is where you think around from maturity of paper to electronic into this digital world. There's a lot of us, and I would say we have elements into that whole hum or right, in terms of opportunity, where people believe digital transformation is going from paper to electronic.
Yeah.
And I think this is an area where over the last 5 years, you're starting to see more and more people get to the now I see it. Now, to be fair, part of this has gotten to where when we've been trying to communicate to our management of what we see the value is, we have to stop using PowerPoint and emails.
You have to get with the times.
Right? Because in a lot of cases,
what you're trying to replace.
Yeah. Because it's back to, this more visual way of working. Right? Yeah. And the what I have found in terms of getting, where we were to where we are now is our consumer lives have moved much faster than what we have done in our, in our industrial lives,
and
right?
we just accept that.
Yes.
When you show up at work, you put away your smart technology and you just go back to your paper.
No, exactly. And I think the interesting part is to relay to our audience in terms of when we talk about moving to a more visual way. I like to tell the story around. So I like to do some stuff, handyman at house, right?
Okay.
Right. So,
and then like to think we're good at it.
Before my spouse calls the repair person, right? So, but anyways, the point is that yes, I will go to YouTube, right? And I will go look to go see the visual. I have learned, by the way,
standard protocol.
Not everything on YouTube is accurate. I know that's a shocker to you guys, but not everything is on there.
Oh, it's quite close though. Come on.
So I have the rule of thumb that I need to see it 3 times by 3 different people before I be like, I'm ready to go do it, right? But if you think of the way that we do that in our personal lives, and then I think from a transformation standpoint, you'd say, well, why do I accept anything less in our industrial environment? I think that is where we have seen a tremendous change, even for people that have come here using Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze, right? Agnostic in terms of the data, in terms of the enrichment. I see that as moving further along, but that's just catching up where we are.
Yeah, but people trust that, right? So like, just take the Google Maps example. Everyone, pretty much, if they've never been to somewhere before, they call up some sort of this map system, and it'll give you an estimate, 1 hour. And even if you show up an hour 15, you're still going to trust it the next time. You're still so there's elements inside there of like just using it every single day, building up some trust on this, and that leads into the transformation side of it as well.
It absolutely is. I mean, on my Google Maps, it will tell me that the Exxon station is always the cheapest gasoline on the corner.
Of course.
When I tell that to my competitors, they're like, "What?" And I said, "Well, this is what this is the algorithm on my phone, right?" So it's a personalized experience, right? But no, I do think it's an area where as people interact more and more with the technology, they start to ask the questions as to, well, why can't I do this? I had an operator come to me once. And he said, Michael, I really appreciate the work that we're doing in terms of mobility devices, in terms of a digital platform. why do I ever have to go back to an operator shelter? Why can't I do my entire job from this platform?
But isn't that just a level of success? That's when people talk about this hard ROI, there's a lot of soft return on investment. And hearing that, for me, man, you've done something that's been successful. And when people say, we can never go back to the old ways of working.
Exactly.
You've changed hearts and minds.
You've changed the hearts and minds. And I think our industry is still going through some of that, where there are elements I've seen in terms of technology. I mean, use of drones or quadrupods, et cetera. It's growing, but there is work that goes on today that we will never go back. I mean, just a specific example. Do you guys remember the days when if you had to do a flare tip inspection, the only way you're going to do a flare tip inspection is you're going to build this massive, whatever it is, 150 scaffold, 150 foot scaffold, or you're going to put somebody in a man basket and you're going to fly them up there, right? In terms of
you pick the new guy and go, hey.
That's right.
Initiation.
Yeah, here we go.
But if you look at now, most people will use the technology associated with drones and reality capture, right, in terms of the fidelity to do that work. This is a good example.
Completely accepted.
Right? Where it's an accepted practice. We have physically changed the way we work. I think as we think about the future, there is more of that opportunity. And this is where, as you said, trusted data or use. And part of the trusted data and use, in my opinion, is back to, and we have a phrase that we've used is called crowdsourcing of the quality of data. Right? Because in some cases, if you think of where we have come from, data was in silos, nobody could see it, it was in somebody's drawer. But as soon as you make that transparent, just like I said, the cheapest gasoline is always on the corner. It's the Exxon station. The more that people see that, is that subliminal?
It's in my face.
So the point is that the more and more people utilize that, or if it's incorrect, then Exxon will be the cheapest at the end, right? So my point is that as people are reinforced in terms of using it, in the broader audience that interacts with it is actually accelerating. I have a couple of examples, for example, where we are in the rollout of use of digital twins at our sites. It is a tremendous pull from my customers. Like they are telling me
internal customers.
Internal customers, right? And this is where we can't go fast enough. And the struggle we have sometimes holding people back is because they want to accelerate in an area I can't sustain. Right? And this is where, what I would say is part of that transformation to scale. There are some areas where you actually need to go a little bit slower to make sure you can actually support it.
So that's sustained. Because there is a service element still today in this technology that's rolling out. But I'm so curious. You talked about like a person coming up to you like saying we can never go back to the old ways of working. So how intentional are you when you take this technology? Because technology is just technology, right?
That's right.
Starting with, okay, we're going to rewire how this job is done, right? How these tasks are actually chained together to create a job or an output or something. How intentional are you when you're rolling out your digital twins inside Exxon?
So I mean, one of the things that we do, and this is not rocket science, right, is before we get into any enamored, is it a shiny key? Is it a solution looking for a problem, right? I mean, all that stuff. We may have some of those, right? But the part that we get to is let's make sure we define the work process today. And then with the adoption of the technology, what does that work process look like in the future? And if you can't see those two parallel efforts, then you're probably working on a shiny key, right? And I think, as you go through that, now don't get me wrong, one of the other areas, there's always the plus and minus. We're talking about the consumer lives, right? Everybody, interaction with technology at home, that also gets to where, you talk about user interface, user design, right? But now you have a huge audience that wants everything to work like Facebook, right?
Exactly.
And you're like,
we're not Facebook.
we're, that's not the business we're in, right? Let's remember what we're trying to do.
Where's my like button?
Exactly. But I think the interesting part is, it's a different workforce that we have to engage. I mean, I have some examples where we have rolled out, think of P&IDs, right? You want to go look at a P&ID. I've had somewhere, we give them a mobile device, and they're like, oh, my God, look at this. You want me to look at the P&ID on my cell phone, right? But then if I look at, what it says the younger generation, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I don't have any problem with this. I can move it around, et cetera.
It's just what they're raised with, like it's a completely
It
different.
is. So I do think this is an area where, you know, our demographics and our industry is continuing to change. And what I expect is more and more demand from our customers, our internal customers in terms of doing it. And not just ExxonMobil. If I look at the way we interact with a lot of our suppliers and vendors, right? I mean, if you look at, you know, are we really focused on sending paper back and forth?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we're still at the, like, you know, and but even just to segue a little bit from there, right? So when you have that kind of interaction, they talked about how digital can change business models, you know, from performance-based business rather than this kind of transactional. So you have to force people into a little bit of a partnership, committing to delivering on what they said they're going to deliver on a continuous, iterative basis. How important is that as well? Because digital isn't just push a button, you know, oh yes, now we're all digital. Look at the value. Streaming in.
And this is an area where, you
Isn't
know,
it?
No, that magic button.
It just shows up and everybody magically,
value co-pilot.
I think the opportunity, you know, when we think about management of change, the management change in itself is not about the technology. It's really about the people and the work process to utilize it, right? Because look, I have some very painful scars where we went to go, look, we're going to make this job easier. We're going to give everybody mobility devices, et cetera. And then we finally go out to do an audit and we're like, why isn't anybody using the mobility solution? They're using a clipboard. And we're like, why are we going backwards?
Where's your iPad?
Well, part of it was back to, it's like, okay, yeah, in the office that works. But if you're out in the asset and you lose connectivity, why am I going to go do this twice, right? So there's opportunities where I'd say our infrastructure probably the single biggest thing that we underestimate time and time again.
But also the biggest area.
I was going to say, no, but how do you do it when you, with any company, not just Exxon, any company, what do you do, and even with you as well, at Kongsberg, how do you distinguish the ones that just don't want to do it to ones that probably can't do it, but they need help to do it? Because I see it a lot. You see a lot of this issue where you get stubbornness. People just don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. And they don't say it, but they don't do it. So as managers, as leaders, how do you, because I would struggle with that personally. If all of this money is involved in changing the transformational ecosystem of your company and internally and externally, what do you do when you have I'm
going to jump in there just from a technology provider point. So we're not Facebook, you know, but we're building industrial software, right? So when you talk about any type of software, from our perspective, we have to make it as easy as possible, as nice as possible, as empathetic as possible to adopt, right? So that's our task, right? So we work hand in hand with an operator like Exxon, and then we stand back and go, well, it's up to you now to change your processes, bring your laggards, right?
That's your call.
But then you can point back and go, well, this is not intuitive. It's lagging. The experience isn't good, and we go, okay, we take that on, right? So it is a hand in hand. We do, you know, go into this together, and we go, okay, how can we? And we iterate off each other, and we go like, and then there's certain rules that you have inside this industry, like, you know, things have to be this color, not that color, you know. So you have to follow these kind of industrial rules from a software perspective as well. So it is a hand-in-hand process, and our main task is to make this as lovable as possible. The software, just get it out there, and then it's like kids with tablets or iPads or whatever, right? One kid has it, another kid looks over, this is interesting, and then you get these kind of early adopters, and then suddenly the laggards are sitting out there by themselves going, okay, I want to be part of this gang, and that kind of kicks it off in a way. At least that's what we've been seeing.
I think part of that journey is, as we think about reimagining the way we do work, we also have to recognize that, okay, when we give people mobility devices, right, or interaction in terms of 3D, we don't expect them to do the same 10 steps that they used to do before, right? Because because then you get back to, I think one of the panelists mentioned before, it's like, okay, I've made an overhead bearing process faster. Like, okay, did you really add any value? I think, you know, back to your question, Adam, this is the part where I'd say we sometimes underestimate the amount of change it takes in recognizing our demographics, right? Because in a lot of cases, I have examples within my organization where, you know, frankly, people get enamored with, my job is to roll out this solution. And part of what we have to do is stand back going, guys, are we looking at the end-to-end process? Because if the end-to-end process is not better than where we were, then all we're doing is pushing a bespoke solution, and frankly, we could be adding cost to the business.
But that's the problem, man. And we've talked about this as well, where You know, if you look at your end-to-end process, right, it's
Yep.
very easy for them to say, it's very easy for people to come in and say, we're going to optimize this, right? And then they go away and they go, yeah, we've optimized. What have you optimized, right?
That's right.
Let's look at it end-to-end, right? And this
Yeah.
is where I feel optimization for me is elimination,
Yep.
right? Because that's the only sustained optimization, right? So if you can say, this is my work process, this is my business flow, or whatever it is, these 4 or 5 steps are gone. They're
Yep.
automated, and
Yep.
now you're just down from 1, you compress the whole thing to 2 steps. So your wrench time, your tool time just goes up.
Yep.
People are much happier. I mean, where we've seen the biggest successes, where you've proven to people you've made their job easier.
Yep. That's right.
And
And then you'll never get the technology out of their hands.
you never get
Right.
It's like
Like an iPhone, like anything.
like
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But think about it. I'm sure all of us were at a certain
Yeah.
age that have gone from,
Are we?
scanning your travel bills, and taping them in
Yeah.
and then photocopying them, then posting.
I
right?
still like a printed boarding pass though, when you say that. I do. I don't like the electronic one.
Yeah.
I hate that.
These are the barriers we have to overcome.
Yeah. No,
that's right, that's right,
And
that's
now
right.
today you can just scan a receipt,
Yeah.
and everything just automatically
Yeah.
populates, right? So and you go, and then you show your colleague, and go, oh, this is great. Look,
Yeah.
boom, done. And you say, oh yeah, this is great. Like it makes their
Yeah.
task so much easy.
But I'll pick on that one,
Yeah.
right? Because now, in terms of in the financial industry, right,
Yeah.
you get to where you actually don't need the receipt
Yeah.
because the data is already captured at the
Somewhere.
point of sale.
Yeah.
Right. And so yes, there are apps now to where I don't need a paper receipt.
No.
Because after I've approved it, it's all there.
They connect
Yeah.
to these pay systems.
Yes,
Interoperability.
yes,
And that's
yeah,
another.
yes.
Yeah.
Because I think to me
Good
this
point.
is
Yeah.
a good example
Yeah.
of. I mean, we were having a funny dialogue earlier around how many people we talk about digital of the future, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the first time you meet them, they hand you a business card.
Yeah.
And I look at them, I'm like, look, I got rid of my Rolodex about 20 years ago, right? So,
I'm going to put that in my drawer. With my Nokia charger.
But if you think about that, right? I mean, when and some years ago we started, we all started with those business cards.
yeah.
You had the Rolodex, but then we became transformational.
Yeah.
Because then we had these scanners. You
Yeah.
could actually scan these business cards
Yeah.
into some other application.
But it was about a machine that big, though.
That's right. But then you got this big app with all this data that's
Yeah.
unorganized.
Yeah.
You can't search it.
structure,
Etc. Just like I just created another mess.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
you said.
But I think this is a good reflection around. We think about our digital transformation journey, and we talk about introducing technology. We can't get in a way to where all we have done is taken business cards and scanned it into some other database because it's not the full end-to-end process.
You built another silo, basically.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
exactly.
know what you mean. I have to say one thing, though. I was having a conversation earlier. I think it was one of the guys from Chevron. I did say that will enabling technologies like with its AI, will it make us dumber? Are we? No, but you know what? Are we going back as a human race? If you look at now,
Are we putting too much trust into the algorithms in a way?
Look at the roles potential that AI will do the next year. Like, are we taking something away from the human brain that we shouldn't? Do you know what I mean?
But think of it as an industry, right? So we've seen this great brain drain. We're seeing this retirement of knowledge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We do struggle as an industry to hire these young people in. So there's a bit of a gap there, right? So something needs to close that gap. So for a period of time, we're going to have to backfill that with some sort of knowledge graph, some sort of
that's what I said
digitalization.
about institutional knowledge.
Do you know how
if you don't have that,
I agree.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that.
but you need to store that knowledge somewhere
okay,
so you
then
can
that
hand it
makes
over.
a point. I know what you mean.
You've seen some
Yep.
drilling companies, they would dying to hire people to run 12-hour shifts
Right.
for 3 weeks offshore, doing the night drilling shift. Right? They can't get people to do that. So they're going, please digitalize me.
Yeah.
So it's not about getting stupider. I think it's more about being a curator of that knowledge, so it's not lost.
Yeah,
I do think to your point, Adam, we need to think about what are the competencies of the worker of tomorrow look like? Because I agree with you. Like today, it would be fun. We could go out into the hall here.
Yeah.
Let's bring a map.
But with these-
Let's bring a map and a compass, right? And we'll sit there and say, "Okay, I need you to go navigate."
Don't ask me. My wife's the
God,
navigator.
I couldn't even find this place. I was trying to go up the stairs.
But to your point, I mean,
Yeah.
these are skills that when we were younger,
Yeah.
we learned,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I do think as technology is changing, we need to think about, well, what are the skills that we need to hone and harness of the future? Because they're not necessarily the same ones we had in the past.
No,
Yeah.
but also look what AI
Yeah.
is going to replace, right? So it's not like AI is going to replace jobs. Right? It's going to replace tasks that people have to do their job. So as an industry, we have a 30% average wrench time or tool time. 37%, right? And we talked about it earlier on, right? That we hire people to do a job that is only 37% positive output on it, right? Now, different people, have maybe a higher or lower, right? This is an average, right? But those tasks that are taken up, we're automating away those tasks. It's not the knowledge to do the job. You're still going to be a mechanical engineer, a maintenance engineer. You know, you're still going to need people with that domain knowledge, but you're freeing up a lot of these tasks that they don't want to do anyway, right? And where a lot of problems happen and human error creeps in is because of the repetitiveness of this, or just going, oh, do you know what? I can't get this data. It's probably this. You know, it's probably the same as I saw last week or last month. That's when problems creep in. That's when human error can lead to tragic accidents inside this industry. You're automating and making things better and safer on that level. So it's not about the whole task.
I did find one, because one follow-up, because I forgot I've got to host the next session. Yeah. One thing that I did say, which I didn't agree with actually in the last panel, and they said, I think as Andrea was saying about, well, we make mistakes. Okay, why can't machine make mistakes? But they shouldn't, because that's the whole point, isn't it? You get a machine, it shouldn't make a mistake.
But you build biases in.
No, but that's the whole. Isn't that the whole point?
No,
but then you have am I wrong? I could be wrong.
No, you're not wrong. But if you say, look, one of the definitions of a digital twin is, you know, it's a virtual representation of your physical asset. If your physical asset had problems, they're going to be represented accurately in a virtual world, right? And if you train an algorithm to do something with bias, that bias is going to transfer naturally into this. So there has to be a little bit of kind of massaging of that algorithm afterwards to make it better. To make it better. But I would say if it's just one-to-one, then you're going to have the same problems you have.
Exactly.
But that's the start point. Then you can start training machines which are better at doing these boring, mundane tasks where problems do leak in.
I do think that, you know, back to a competency standpoint, you know, when will we know if it's making the wrong recommendation? When will you know
that's the thing.
Right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So I do think there's a competency trend here where we basically need to be able to give people what I'd say the skills to recognize the difference. Because I like your example, because I think the example is very practical around, you know, look, you know, and this is why, you know, when we think about our journey, reality first is where we're starting. Because if I think of CAD models, look, as a, you know, ex-designer, you know, how many times have you heard the rubber, you know, a rubber ruler, right? You go out there, it's like, oh, the pipe doesn't fit. It's like, well, you measured it wrong. No, you manufactured it wrong.
Exactly.
Right? But I mean, if you think of that, you know, what does that meme think of in the future? Because just because you have an electronic, you can still get it wrong.
Of course you can.
Right? I mean, I have stuff that we've done precision down to thousandths of an inch. But you can still mess it up.
Of course.
Right? In terms of capability.
True.
So, but I think the question is really around, you know, how do we help grow the competencies so that people understand what they can trust and where the data came from, right?
The lineage.
Because I think that's important as we grow in this journey, is really understanding so that we are focused on what I would say is the right input to drive success.
Quickly, I know we're going to be finishing here quickly, Mike. Next 5 years.
I was going to say that.
So
next 5 years. Where are we going?
So it's interesting. We have some of these discussions we've had around the vision within oil and energy. I'd say the humble part is my first, you know, the next 5 years is I would actually look outside of our industry. I do have the opportunity where I spend a lot of time. I will tell you that the Defense Department, in terms of some of the skills and capability, even the media and entertainment work has moved on. Even the financial districts, in terms of, you talk about their digital threads and digital trends in terms of data management. Within oil and gas, what I see happening is a lot of consolidation is still going to take place. We think about the energy transition. This is an area where expertise is probably not going to be at a individual site.
True.
It's going to be in either regions or locations that are supporting larger and larger footprints. Some of that really offset by what I would say is the technology that allows you to do things at a larger scale, right? It's no longer one for people, et cetera. But
you're decentralizing, you're more interconnected as well. These systems are more complex.
But to do that, you need to provide rich, deep contextualization of your assets that you couldn't before.
Yeah.
You know, this is no longer the days. Do you guys remember when? I'm gonna date myself here. Do you remember when it's like one of that time of year where you had to go line up every car in the parking lot to make sure it was in the spots because the satellite imagery was going to come over and take a picture, and that was now that was going to be the poster for the next 5 years, right?
2 minutes.
And if you think of that, right, in terms of now what we do from image capture, in terms of driving, that fidelity is going to continue to grow, which provides people rich contextualization of their assets that allows that transformation.
But the clock speed's moving in that as well. So instead of these 5 years, it's down to 1 year, months, minutes, could be in real time.
Exactly. And some of the challenges we're having today, a lot of the disruptors that we're dealing with, because I do think this is an area where some of our, let's say, comfortable suppliers are probably not leaning in as much as we would hope them to lean in.
That's interesting.
And we are going to, and there are disruptors that are interested in getting
Who are these people? Why are you still working with them?
Yes. Because I do think there is capability that we need to drive in terms of the footprint that allows that vision to become true.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've got a host.
Okay.
But last question, who's going to win the game next Friday?
I was going to say, did you see that over there? Why is it going? It does feel like that, though. It does feel like that. I do like it.
Michael, thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.